So, without further ado, today's presentation is called The Road to Expansion: Essential Steps for Scaling Your Short-Term Rental Business. Before I introduce our guest, I just want to give a little background on StayFi since we are hosting this webinar. StayFi is the leading provider of Wi-Fi and guest marketing solutions for short-term rentals, and we're trusted in over 60,000 properties all around the world today. And we've helped thousands of operators increase their direct bookings, gain independence from OTAs like Airbnb, as well as increase their ancillary revenue from third-party services. So I'm super excited today to be joined by Ryan. And Ryan, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hey, good morning and afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining today. I'm a huge fan of StayFi product and the team, and honored to be here today to discuss growing and scaling your business. To me, that's a really fun and exciting topic. A little bit about my background. I worked in finance before getting pulled into short-term rentals back in 2014 when Vacasa was just a small office above a gym. At Vacasa, I built out the revenue optimization department, overseeing all the ways we optimize unit economics, profitability, and growth enablement before overhauling growth analytics. Since then, I've worked with Bungalow on long-term rental pricing, iBuying growth, Gather Vacations on launching a new brand, markets, and service model. And I've also worked on OTA data feeds with Hungry Robots and rental car pricing algorithms. Currently, I have my own short-term rental company called Cascadia Getaways, focused solely on Oregon short-term rentals. And I also consult with other property managers in the space and vendors. Between 700 to 40,000 units growth at Vacasa, and then 0 to 73 units in a couple months at Cascadia. I can talk through a few learnings. Analytics to me analytics and revenue are large areas of my resume. But I really see analytics as the medium to business decisions and revenue as the oxygen for business. So outside of that, I've been the treasurer of the world's largest roller derby league, launched an iOS app. I have a venture rental business with camper vans, trailers, and tents. I have a passion for hospitality and entrepreneurship, and I love to help other property managers grow their service and grow to better service their owners and guests. So I'll try to keep this on the higher level side with some helpful takeaways. I can nerd out and get into the weeds for hours. So please, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to toss them in the questions section, the chat section, and I'll put my contact info at the end in case any other questions arise. So we're all here today to talk about scaling our business and growth. So we all have different reasons for wanting to grow. It's always worth reflecting on why you want to grow your business and what your goals are. And then we'll hit on that a little bit later. Growth is more than just buying owner data and dropping mail. That's what we're going to talk through today first. We'll start with, in my opinion, the 4 areas to prepare your company for growth, which are growing your business has to be an intentional step. Otherwise, growing without intentions will take you somewhere else and fill your business with a bunch of one-offs. So there's 4 main themes when preparing your business for scale. You must standardize your offerings as well as service delivery to be ready for more volume. You must automate the pieces of your business that won't degrade service. And then you must also plan for where you want to go, what you think that looks like in the future. It doesn't have to be precise, but this step's important. That's how you know you're heading in the right direction. And then, of course, comes the doing stage. So getting stuff done, or GSD as we call it. Sometimes we'll hand out a GSD award for the week. And all right. So Henry Ford had a famous quote about standardization. He set out with a big goal to bring affordable transportation to the masses and needed to control costs and quality. Now, when it comes to your business, controlling costs and quality are also paramount to scale and your own sanity. When it comes to, because the goal of standardization is to really simplify the offerings to reduce one-offs. This will help you and your staff operate larger portfolio quickly without additional owner approvals, checking for coverage, or things that slow down the process. And that also simplifies training and new employees, because as your organization grows, you really become a training organization. And then standard offerings bring a simplified cost model. So knowing what new homes will cost your program from both a fixed and a variable cost perspective. Fixed costs you incur every month with each home, while a variable cost will come with operating more reservations through each home. And then with a simplified cost and operation model, pricing your service becomes that much easier. You know what rates you can offer for different performing homes or different levels of availability. And then the standard cost models, operation, and pricing then make it easier for your referral partners and your marketing either partners, vendors, or team to promote your business. It sounds more like professional and inviting, having a set of services and prices rather than reaching out and having a conversation about one-offs and complicated pricing. So if you look at e-commerce and how standardized and simplified things are, they're optimizing for thousandths of a percent in conversion improvements. So we'll go to the next one. And one major inhibitor to scale is managing all those one-offs I mentioned. So as you're building your business, you take the yeses as they come. You build some one-offs, whether you're learning your business or trying to win your first few owners, you're tempted to say yes more than you otherwise would. So standardizing your offering simplifies a lot, including operations, servicing your homes, to sales, to contracts, to collateral, to how you price your services. So think about all the one-offs owners have asked you for, considering rate strategy input, permissions to accept bookings, special commission rates, to special procedures for their home. The list goes on, special technology that they want in there. So I'm curious, what are some of the one-offs you all have had that made you want to rip your hair out? You can just toss those in the chat if you have any crazy ones. And then, yeah, just managing all of those one-offs at scale. When you're 2 or 3 times bigger than your current business, couldn't you manage every different homeowner camera that they want and all the apps that they want and all the special check-in instructions, or having to go to the owner for each reservation specification or approval that they want each time? So that will just hit at your conversion. I always recommend by starting off with a list of all of the work, services, and expenses that go into managing a short-term rental, and then from there, identifying who's covering those expenses. So in the service levels, make it clear to your team what's included, what's our job, and what we're doing today. So having the clarity with your team and avoiding the back and forth and owner permissions, reading contracts will save them time. And let's face it, you and your team are probably already pretty busy. But for expenses, your business will cover. It's helpful for later modeling what the expected cost is or cost method, or if for guests, what the cost method is to make sure you're covering those pass-through expenses correctly. So on the next one, and then once you have that, what's included with your management fee, you can better understand what your monthly costs are going to be, or what they will look like. So this will help with budgeting or very seasonal limited availability units. If you need to introduce a minimum monthly management fee for, this will help you to better figure that out. So this is also an example of a tech stack and then a little bit of amortizing some of those onboarding costs for new inventory. So in a situation like this, if we needed to put a minimum monthly management rate on for a home due to either availability issues from the owner using it or excessive minimum rates, we might pick somewhere in the 170 to 250 range just to make sure we're covering those fixed costs. No. Then we'll go to the next one. So this is once you finish what's included, and then that can all flow into pricing your offering. So the above is an example of just some simplified unit economics to show you how you may choose discount down from your rack rate if you have to. This may be what you hand to a salesperson to allow them to negotiate, but keep incentives on the management fees, so discounting isn't the first step. We typically would pass or introduce a minimum monthly management fees on homes that do less than 30 grand per year, but this also allows you to build different service levels if you have owners that are looking for pure basic, or if you have owners that are less price sensitive and want a full service model. So this is a tool that we've used in the past to set our commission rates, understand if we're doing a bulk deal with an owner, like what commission set can we include or target. And this net income is really a contribution margin. So it's after the unit has paid for all of its expenses of just existing in the program, what gets kicked back to the business itself. So when talking with prospect owners, you can explain your service level as we do this way because of quality standards, automation, keep costs low, the impact of one-on-ones in the team. Because to truly price the one-offs from a labor and a management perspective, owners might actually be surprised at the cost. And if you include all of the labor of running to the home, coming back, handling all the guest interactions, the back and forth really adds up quite a bit. And the next piece is automation. So without automation, scale is throwing more humans at the problem, which you can of course do, but you get no efficiencies out of scaling. So that will allow your competition to undercut you on management fees while offering a more consistent level of service. So when it comes to automation, you want to think through what tasks are repeatable over the course of a week or a month that eats up a lot of non-growth productive time. So automation ensures consistency of quality as well, versus becoming too busy for certain parts of the business, slipping through the cracks. Automation means it always happens, not just when you remember it, it happens. So before going too far, I like to highlight the difference between automation versus automagic. Automagic is more of a term we've given to the process of tasks that appear automated, but really have humans pulling the levers behind the scenes. There might be some tech there that helps them stitch together some of the processes, um, kind of like a mechanical Turk. So sometimes we employ automagic processes until either they're refined enough for automation, as we're building out the use cases, the different set of examples they might run into, or until tech capacity opens up. So one example of this is we'll use overnight team members in the Philippines to accomplish certain repeatable tasks that we can't quite automate today or aren't ready for automation. They still need a little human judgment, but to us and to the guest, it seems automagic. So with automation, there's a few ways to think about this. When you're thinking about uh, this, there's ways to free up your time and decision fatigue. So it's good practice for you and your team to go through an audit every so often to map where your time goes. And some helpful questions are going to be what repeatable tasks can be automated without degrading the quality of service? What tasks of mine can be delegated to whom, and what does that do to their capacity? Where does 80% of my time go? Is that efficient? How can I delegate my goals to my team and let them come up with tasks, project solutions? That's more on the automatic side of things. And then what does a world of exception management look like? Exception management is more where you have a highway where the bulk of work and the bulk of things are automated, but there's off ramps for certain cases, criteria, or exceptions to be made where they need your judgment or something on your team's judgment. And then what can preemptively be automated to avoid future work? That last one's a big one. I'll show you some examples on the next slide. So managing more homes means lots more guests and lots more questions. So with that in mind, it's important to figure out where most of your questions come from and how to best branch or automate that. So if you have a separate flow for booking windows or property types, that'll help even more. So I recommend proactively communicating with guests to try to redirect communication channels to where you prefer the communication channels, and then to put them at ease that more information is coming and provide resources for future questions. So that means sharing a guidebook, letting them know what check-in information is coming, and handling common questions before they come up. You want to serve the right amount, the right information at the right time. Otherwise, it won't be absorbed, and guests will ask questions about future information to come. When it comes to manual versus automatic versus automation, the evolution from one to the next usually works best when you can document the process that always happens and what edge cases there are. If the task is easily automated, go for it. But if you need to run some exception management, automatic works great for that. You're always looking for ways to free up your time and your team's time, but also your decision-making horsepower. So as you scale your business, you need to focus on minimizing decisions per day to increase the quality of those decisions you're making. So just some areas of things that might be automated or automatic in this case. So like reviewing guest post stay and requesting reviews, that can be automated. Emailing marketing with Wi-Fi and StayFi, that can be automated, and that kicks out some revenue. Over occupancy or noise violations, if you're using StayFi or Noise Aware, you can automate those texts as well. Housekeeping assignments or reporting unassigned, those can be readily automated in your PMS, or checkout notifications if you're using smart locks and inspection done, texting the guests. There's some pretty interesting and pretty cool things you can do there to automatically delight guests with early check-in without having to do anything. My favorite thing is when you just start receiving thank yous, but you haven't done anything, which is kind of when you know you've got it dialed in. So like safely or insurance claims, we have this on more an automatic track where a notification will go to our admin. She will handle the ordering and replacement, and then it just appears on the owner statement. So to me, the process seems automated, but there's a human pulling the lever. And then same thing with revenue management. You could have some outsourcing with notification-based management, or kind of set up some guardrails of when you want to be notified to then go do some research and pull the lever.
And just curious, how did you go out and identify talent to hire? If someone hasn't done that before, how did you
Yeah.
go out and identify talent to hire, let's say in the Philippines, to do some of these more auto magic tasks that still require human intervention?
Yeah. There's the good old internet, but I'm a real big fan of referrals. So the talent we have there has been doing short-term rental accounting in the past. So if I find somebody who has the process, the automation, the talent that I'm looking for, I'll start there by asking them how they found it, who they are, if they have capacity. And then if that route doesn't work, then I'll start searching for talent. So luckily, the person we found worked with one of my partners previously.
And I was actually curious going back to kind of the guest check-in instructions and answering questions. I've seen a lot of these AI reservation agents been popping up lately. I'm just curious if you've tried anything like that to try to automate answering folks' questions, or you don't think it's quite there yet, or you wouldn't trust a tool like that yet.
Yeah, that's really exciting and interesting to us. We haven't turned it on completely. We are watching some of his responses. Sometimes we take it, sometimes we don't. For us, we're building up the more automatic responses where here's all of our saved replies so they can be taken and used. And we're also building up content on our site because we'd love to be able to point it all to the AI bot, to our website, say, digest all of this, and then you can start answering. So right now we're building out more of the content for the AI. I don't know that it has all of the information it needs because it can be confidently wrong to guess, which is not what we want them to have.
Totally.
So working on that piece, Automate Vacation Rentals is another company. I completely forgot that I did not put them in this deck, but Nick Moat built that company, and we use them to automate our copywriting for new listings or listings we take over. And we were talking about ways to turn that into a way to not just do copy, but the full guest journey. Much like I said, putting the right information, the right time. If you just dump it all at the very front, they're not reading it. So you have to figure out how to trickle the information throughout the journey. So how can we use AI to figure out when guests are asking certain questions and jump the gun on proactive communication? So if we go to the next slide, it kind of ties into that. Around the guest journey, we've introduced a lot of automation aimed at limiting the need for one-offs with guest communication and moving communication off platform to increase repeat direct bookers. And StayFi helps with that quite a bit. So each guest communication has the goal to inform the guest, share more information that they want more, and we'll also let them know what's coming. So this helps put guests at ease that if you don't have certain information, it's on its way. It's not that we forgot. We also strategically time and shift communications off platform. So as the guest gets closer to their stay, they're mobile. So we start shifting our communications to text message. But we also do that to introduce them to our operations line, which is separate from our reservations line and staffed 24/7 overseas support. So that proactively gets check in on issues, with the goal being that they're reported there and not on platform. And then it's also early enough that we can fix those issues ahead of time. And then we also leverage StayFi in order to capture all guest emails. So that will trigger as well over occupancy limits and notifications to share more information. The StayFi splash page will highlight the guidebook, reservation details, activities in the area, and extra home details. So that will also save quite a bit of questions. And then a follow-up email is triggered from there to introduce the guest to the brand. So we also use that for a little bit of education for the guest of guests. So they don't just remember we booked an Airbnb, they can remember the brand and why it's different than Airbnb and how they can save money. And StayFi Flow lands them into a marketing automation flow that goes out till 2 weeks after the checkout. And then after that, they just drop into our monthly marketing campaign from StayFi. And then the remainder of the guest flow is to upsell extra days or to remind them of checkout times, ask a review, and then eventually ask them to book again. So each piece of the communication has a goal tied to it, or a call to action, CTA. So for our homeowners, we also have a different flow scheduled, and we remind our homeowners about door codes, share them a link to the damage report form so they can submit damage they've identified, or work that they would like us to perform. That allows us to generate more billable work, as well as identify damage information that needs covering under our protection program. And then they also help to audit our guidebooks. So the owners get to see our guidebooks when they go into their own home and also realize what needs updating or what's not in sync. Outside of communications, we also automate the cleaning, scheduling, inspections. When a reservation is created, the clean is assigned either the property manager or a dedicated cleaner, and then an inspection scheduled after that. We also have an asset management tasks auto scheduled that will do vacancy checks, seasonal snow plowing or shoveling on the mountain, or deep clean scheduling, or property maintenance or owner outreach. So we also will auto schedule those tasks in there as well, just to make sure we're being proactive. So I was told you all get really excited about seeing other people's tech stack. So here's ours. Our tech stack is built around Guesty, which integrates with Zapier, PriceLab, StayFi, and I have a dotted line to Avalara, which means I can schedule a nice report out of Guesty, but ultimately have to reformat it and upload it into Avalara. Still looking for a way to automate that just because taxes are painful. StayFi handles all of our guest marketing and email capture as well as embed our Viator widget. And then Zapier allows us to connect to pretty much anything. So we use HubSpot, Slack, QuickBooks, and Zapier builds an API to a bunch of different providers that connect things that may not talk to each other out of the box. And that also allows you to design workflows for new guests. So you can trigger a contract to be sent out, or you can trigger a postcard to drop on their birthday. You can do pretty much anything with Zapier. It's pretty fun to play with. But that enables a lot of automation and some automagic. So an example of automagic here is if a ticket gets created in Guesty for damage, or an owner reports damage via our Google form that we have, it notifies our admin, who then submits a claim safely and orders the item on Amazon, so it appears automagic. Owners just see a request to approve design decisions if those need to be made, or just simply see a line on their statement with a $0 balance of what was replaced. Because it's kind of like the dishwasher rule, where if you don't tell anybody you did something, you're not going to get the credit for it. So you want to make sure you're telling owners all the stuff you're doing to get extra credit. So they don't just think it's loaded up on Airbnb, easy peasy. So that stack allows us to automate pricing, marketing, ID verification, Viator sales, reservation, finance related items, as well as within Guesty, we can automate some calendar joins for selling complexes and different calendar blocks.
And then you use Guesty for all your task automation, for cleaning, for all managing those things as well.
Yep. We use that because we also have the availability feature in there. So we'll also toggle if the status is cleaned, inspected, in progress, dirty. So we do use that quite a bit.
And then is HubSpot just for homeowner marketing or homeowner acquisition, or you also use it for guest facing marketing?
Yeah, good question. Right now, it's just for homeowners and referrals and prospects.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah, we use StayFi for all of our guest related marketing.
And then
So
does Guesty, because I'm just not as familiar, do they have in their unified inbox product, does it also have the two-way texting capability where you're managing all your inbound guest texting from there as well?
yeah, exactly. We manage our texting out of Guesty, so we can, once we reach a certain point, it just drops to texting to let them know,
Mhm.
hey, here's your door code. It's on your phone. You have it when you go in, or friendly little reminders.
So-
Yeah. Oh, let's go back one more slide. So on the HubSpot front, while all of our data is appended and loaded, we currently don't have the automation turned on, but because we have 37 units in our onboarding queue at the moment. Mid-August, we plan to flip that on, but HubSpot workflows can automate sets of emails, voicemail drops, postcard sends, and have different messaging for each series. So if you have one series run for a week, take a week off, run another series for a week, or however you want to design it, it'll give the impression of a very determined sales rep. But on the other side, on our side, we get phone calls and emails without having to do too much pushing. So Drop Cowboy, PostGrid are two good tools to integrate in HubSpot there. And HubSpot will actually send out emails via sequence. So you avoid a lot of bulk spam flags because it treats it as a one-to-one marketing. So tech
And
stack
it,
automation does
yeah, and
that.
how are you coming to, how do you source your homeowner actual leads in terms of addresses, emails, kind of what's your angle that you find works to acquire new owners, whether it's their first time using a property manager or you're potentially trying to get them from a different property manager?
Yeah, good question. Right now with Cascadia, the bulk has come through either property manager or cleaners with portfolio roll-ins, and then one large HOA that we've been talking to for the last year or so. And we've also gotten some homeowner referrals. But for the actual owner data itself, um, we got started with some Hungry Robots data. They don't do homeowner data anymore. So we'll just go direct to the county that we want to buy. Cascadia Getaways only operates in the state of Oregon. So we can very selectively pick the counties we want. So like I can go to 4 different county websites and get the records directly. Um, if you're not comfortable getting data, appending it, cleaning it yourself, you can also go to something like Property Radar to purchase data. They append it to, I don't know how far they append it out, but you can also go to Accurate Append to append data. And I think they both might have USPS mail validation because if you're dropping mail, you want to make sure it gets there. If you're spending the money, you want to make sure it doesn't go to their lawyer's office and then the trash can. So you can also validate if it's going residential, commercial addresses. So I'll hit on the mail data a little bit later as well.
And then just curious, going back to you had a great uh, spreadsheet with the different tiers of owners and percentages based on their revenue. When you acquire or bring on a new property, do you make any assumptions that you will be able to outperform their like historical performance, or do you kind of assume you will perform at par, or have you found that from year to year because the market is changing, it's may not be as predictive as it used to be, or just kind of generally how do you approach that, like the
Yeah, yeah.
forecasting for each property?
Good call. On a managed by owner, that's going to be on more of a case by case basis. Most managed by owners we could beat simply because they underprice themselves, fill their calendars, aren't as sophisticated. If they're managed by a competitor, most of the time we can beat them. It's going to depend on who. We're getting most of our homes right now from Vacasa, so that's a little bit easier to beat. They used to be industry leader on revenue, but they've kind of stopped making improvements there and offshore the revenue management team to Mexico City. So that kind of gives us an advantage being local and on the ground. We can outperform them here, and then also having a slightly lighter fee profile. So even if it might be a lighter year for some people, we've noticed this is the first year that many people actually have to put active work into yield management. For COVID till 2023, you basically just set the rates and close your eyes, and it all worked out really nicely. But now you're actually having to go in and be a little bit more nuanced than that. But yeah, if they want the full rack rated, it's pretty easy. We don't have to do any underwriting or forecasting. If we want to do some discounts, we'll just quickly do some math to make sure it still makes sense.
And on your side to manage price labs, um, how much, do you do that yourself, or do you have a revenue manager with experience? Kind of how would you, someone who has maybe a smaller portfolio and has less experience, uh, how do you build up your expertise in terms of being a good revenue manager in a tool like Price Labs?
Yeah, yeah. For me, I've managed revenue management before, like teams of analysts. So I do it myself. That might not always be the case. I will probably offload that at some point when we start getting a little bit too busy for that. But I do recommend for managers that don't have a background in revenue management. There's some great independent revenue managers out there. I can share some recommendations or intros if anybody's interested. But there's a lot of great revenue management talent where not only will they handle the setup and they will handle the monitoring and performance reporting reports to your owners, that also frees you up. When I'm talking about decision fatigue earlier, you can go down a rabbit hole and spend 40 hours a week on pricing. So it's also nice offloading that. There's a cost to it, but it frees you up decision wise, it frees you up time wise, and you have an expert who's likely going to outperform you anyway. So that's one area I would call it an investment, not a cost. There's certain things that are a cost, like Avalara is more of a cost, but saving me time from doing it. Pricing or hiring a revenue manager is more of an investment because they're for sure going to pay for themselves.
Awesome.
Oh, and on the last point on the
Go
homeowner
ahead.
data side, we don't like to just target managed by property manager. We like to get the full spectrum of people out there just because you don't know where people are in their transition of things. And I like to use the dating analogy of when you're dating, it's much easier to go after the single people than the ones that are in relationships, but those are definitely your longer play sales that are out there.
Yeah, I mean, I've just seen in my own, because we work with so many different types of owners and property managers. We've gotten a lot of pings lately of owners saying like, hey, this property, we're still going to use StayFi, but now it's being managed by this business and not by me. So I
Mhm.
definitely seen, more owners lately kind of step back from being the active property manager for their own property. And I feel like that's a trend we'll see continue. And I'm curious if you've seen that in your area as well.
Yeah, yeah, we do have some self-managers that are or self-managed owners that are more on the slow sales cycle for us, where they're doing fine. They're going to do fine until they get a couple 2 a.m. phone calls of something that's gone wrong, and then they're going to call us. So we try to offer our support to help them. We don't offer our cleaning staff to help them or our vendors, but definitely, oh yeah, you can list your properties here. Like you almost pull back the curtain to see the complexity and let them play with it, and then once they burn themselves out or they have a family event come up, they're not going to be able to handle the guest stuff as well. That's when we can come in and help pick up.
I just had one other question here around the channels that you list your properties on. I've heard anecdotally from property managers that we work with that they've seen, Verbo, Booking, basically the non-Airbnb channels, demand coming from there continuing to slide. Has that been your experience in in Oregon as well? And do you list on Vrbo, Booking.com, any other like niche channels that you've seen been successful where you're operating?
Yeah, we are transitioning from another PMS to Guesty. So we've focused on just the major three OTAs at this moment, but we're going to be starting to add some more OTAs this fall. We do have Airbnb, Vrbo, Booking, and Furnish Finder for a couple of units. We try to have at least one in each city, our prettiest unit. So when we get an inquiry, we can kind of shuffle them around if we need to, because that's a one cost per year thing. Um, but we have noticed that trend where, yeah, it seems like Verbo has kind of taken their eyes off of the advertising side of things and have focused just on integrating with Expedia, which is great. That needed to happen, but it does mean that, yeah, Airbnb has been eating a lot of their lunch. So Airbnb has been the strongest channel, and that hasn't always been the case. Oregon used to be very Verbo heavy back in 2016, 17, but it seems like Airbnb's definitely taken over.
Yep, in line with what we've seen everywhere else. Sweet. Anything else you want to share on the tech stack before I just do a quick little overview of StayFi here?
No, go for it.
Yeah, and then we can loop back to some other questions I'm sure people are going to have because you covered a lot and has, spurred a lot more questions in my mind. Yeah, just a quick, I know Ryan touched on StayFi and how it plays a part in his guest journey. So I just wanted to expand on that if we have anyone joining the call that's not familiar. StayFi really has four main components of what we offer property managers or owner operators. Number one is we provide a place to collect and centralize all guest data, and that includes data from the non-booking guests, as Ryan talked about. And the way that we do that is not just through the Wi-Fi, where obviously we offer a service where every guest has to join the Wi-Fi and provide their information through a captive portal. We also will bring in data from a guestie, a host away, an owner res, streamline, track just about every PMS out there. So any data you've collected in there, that includes real emails from guests, we also bring that into then the next point, which is our marketing tools. So we can pull data in from the Wi-Fi, the PMS, also your website with forms and pop-ups, as well as other places, so that all of your marketable guest data is in one tool that then you can send email and text marketing from, both on a one-off basis as well as on an automated basis. So that means automating that post-stay drip of emails to all guests, helping you collect reviews, and then helping obviously drive more bookings directly to your website from anybody who those guests want to refer, or if any of those guests want to come back. Third is we also help elevate your guest experience. So Ryan talked about Viator a little bit in his presentation. That's one of our upsell partners that you can integrate into the Wi-Fi login experience, where you can present guests all these different types of upsells during and even before the stay, so that they can purchase tours and activities, early check-in, things like that, to not only make the stay better, but also earn you incremental revenue. And then, of course, we also monitor the Wi-Fi. And finally, we'll help just make sure that every guest, no matter which OTA they booked with, they all leave knowing your brand and why booking directly with you for the next stay is the best way to go. This is just a visual representation of what the guest experience looks like with StayFi. So guest joins Wi-Fi. Guest will then see a custom splash page for your brand, just like a guest would have seen at an airport or a coffee shop, which you can customize by property. Then after they connect, they're taken to something called the home page. This is a unique page for each of your listings where you can provide all the essential links a guest would need during the stay. Things like a guidebook, a link to book the property again, and then the link to upsell partners like the Hostco and Viator, which are the two that are integrated in with StayFi. But you can also link to any other type of upsell you want to do or other services you offer. So I even see realtors on their homepage offering, a discount or a credit back on your stay if you end up purchasing a home with them. So you can really provide anything you want here with custom buttons. And then this page is a standalone website that you can also share other ways. So if you're doing upsells like early check-in from your homepage, you can share this page prior to the stay with the guest through your PMS messaging. And of course, then you can send this page to all guests through SMS or email when they join the Wi-Fi, So they have the guidebook, your upsells, all on their phone that they can access anytime during the stay. Upsells are one of the newer features in StayFi, so I'll just talk about that a little more. So on the homepage, the two upsell partners we have are the Hostco and Viator. The Hostco is basically a storefront for your properties where you can offer your own services and products, as well as there are a bunch of third-party services you can also enable. Your own services would be things like early check-in, late checkout, mid-stay cleans, any concierge services you have, pool heating, all of that you can integrate into the store, and it's all request-based. So if a guest requests it, you can approve or deny, and if you approve it, then you can fulfill that item. And they also have a bunch of third-party vendors depending on the location, and that can be anything from axe throwing lessons to, yoga teachers that come to the property to massage to, delivery of different items. All of that's available by location, and you get a rev share if you sell any of those items. What's great about this store is that when you create an account through StayFi with the Hostco, it's a free offering, and we automatically create all the stores for you based on your information when you turn it on in StayFi, and then you can go customize those. And then, of course, if you want to sell things like early check-in, you can send the store or the homepage in advance of the stay through your guest messaging. And the one Ryan uses, which is Viator, that's the largest tour and activity marketplace in the world that you can also sign up through StayFi, which is also free. And with that, if any guest clicks one of your recommended tours or activities, you will get an 8% commission if they book within 30 days. So we see folks, they can create these widgets, which they put integrate into the StayFi homepage. Then, of course, they also can use this Viator affiliate program to share recommendations anywhere else. So if guests are asking about tours and activities to your reservation agents in advance, local recommendations, in email marketing on your website, it basically empowers you to give guests great recommendations where you can also make a commission if they happen to make a booking within 30 days. Now I'm going to talk a little bit more about how to build that rapport with guests so that they know how to come back and book direct with you again and again. In StayFi, we have two tools to do this: email and SMS. Email is obviously kind of like the bread and butter of marketing directly in the short-term rental industry. SMS is one we see people leverage a little less. The nice thing about SMS and StayFi is it's all one-way marketing texting, which means when a guest texts you back, it will send an autoresponder, which informs the guest your preferred way of communication. So that way, we're not creating a new channel for guests to communicate with you. We always push them back to communicate with you in your preferred method. And in StayFi, we have three types of campaigns: a welcome campaign. That's a text message that gets sent to the guests when they join the Wi-Fi. And in that text, you can send something like a link to your StayFi homepage. So guests will have that access to the guidebook and any upsells during the whole stay. Then we also have a review campaign where you can screen for 5-star reviews, collect negative feedback if they're less than 5 stars and address that, as well as if they do give you 5 stars, push those guests to review you on Google, your own website, Facebook, or other channels. And then finally, you can also message through SMS all the guests that you've collected their phone numbers from. And we actually did a webinar about this recently where we're doing a bunch of case studies where consistently these marketing texts were getting over 10% click-through rates. And there were folks that we work with that send a text message and get multiple bookings from just one text message. They send to all of their past subscribers with something like an offer or letting them know about last minute availability, which is a big one with text, where if you have a cancellation, you can let your audience know, and then you can get somebody come in and book that last minute offering right away. Email wise, there's a lot of different types of emails you can send through StayFi. The automated ones is typically where we ask people to start, or we recommend that you start. And that would be a Wi-Fi welcome series, which Ryan mentioned, where when a guest logs into the Wi-Fi, you automate an email to that guest. That's an opportunity to introduce your brand, to give them some recommendations, to explain how they can contact you, and then maybe start building up the concept that booking directly with you for future stays is the beneficial way to go. And then you can program subsequent emails, 7 days out, 15 days out, 30 days out. So all of your guests get the continual stream of emails. And the key thing to remember here is that 90+% of the people in this automation are not the booker. So while you may think, hey, I'm sending a lot of information through Guesty to the booker, you have to remember that most of the people getting these emails have never communicated with you before and are a whole new audience to market to. The other one I'll highlight here, two more that are really great, are booking anniversary emails. So again, you can send an email 7, 8, 9 months post stay, depending on what the right booking window is for you, letting guests know like, hey, it's almost been a year since you stayed with us. And in order to secure a reservation for next year, you might want to book now, and maybe you want to give them an offer since typically rates are going to be a little higher way further out for a direct booking. And that way you can start getting bookings out, 3 months in advance for someone's next yearly stay, because so many vacation rental destinations have that kind of yearly travel pattern. And the last one I'll point out here is availability-based emails, which are really powerful for smaller operators. I think one downfall for folks is they're sending emails to guests about listings and properties that are completely booked, right? So if you only have 3 or 4 properties that maybe you own or manage, or it can be disappointing for folks to come to your website and then there be no inventory for the days they want to stay there. So by actually putting in your emails the specific dates that certain properties are available, it attracts the folks that are free and looking to travel those days to actually click through and make a booking and perhaps put in an inquiry about a property. And that way you're not disappointing guests. If you do have a smaller portfolio that's mostly booked, you can focus people right into the orphan days, for instance, that you want are looking for new bookings to come through on.
Awesome. Yogi Berra has a great quote on going places and a lot of other awesome quotes as well on random topics. So I swear, if you're looking for a quote for something, he's always got something good. But all seriousness, he has some really solid points in his simplicity. Knowing where you want to go and why is half the battle. And without thinking on that, your homeowners, happenstances, employees, or vendors of shiny things to sell you will drive your business somewhere that doesn't make you happy in the long term. So Simon Sinek has a really good video, Start With Why. It's also helpful for finding purpose, and which then dictates like how you do things and what you do. Because growth is ultimately an investment, and its core thesis is around your future service levels. What that means is you're investing time, money, and attention today on the belief that your new owners will stay with you past the payback period. And that growth accomplishes why you set out, and if that growth accomplishes why you set out to grow in the first place. I've met managers who started talking about franchise growth and multi-state expansion, but we're spending a lot of money to tread water. So this stage is very important. Once you know, have your why and where sorted out, you can think of what that growth looks like. So if you have a community of managers and a large team, maybe you want to roll in independent property managers to join your team with a rev share, or maybe you want complete control and want to own all of your homes, or maybe you want to lease the right homes and have control without the ownership responsibility. So there's a lot of different ways you can grow your business. So it's worth thinking about what that growth looks like. And then once you have that, what that growth might look like, you can plan on what that growth will cost you money wise, timing wise, how to market, and how to acquire that inventory. And my last favorite piece is accountability. Being an entrepreneur can be a lot of fun, but also can be a roller coaster of emotions and often can be pretty lonely. So it's important to think about how you'll be held accountable. Do you have a mentor you work with? Do you have a business partner who holds you accountable? It's a little less tangible, but it's definitely the most important step, or one of the most important steps. So on the next slide, we'll go over growth can be pretty expensive. That's why you hear companies raising money, or profitable companies raising money or growth equity, paying your referral partners, your onboarding expenses, photography costs money. Understanding how that plays into your seasonality and your staffing costs over time is also helpful. I work with my clients on developing a model as a roadmap, and we revisit this on a regular basis to track progress against that, assumptions, changes to make sure we're on track, and also know if we're going to have a cash struggle in the off season, what that cost is going to be. So we're in a very seasonal business. It's very important to have a process in place for setting a plan, measuring against it, updating the plan to minimize financial surprises. So not just financial, but it's also a good idea to plan team capacity as well. So are you taking on a major project during a peak busy season? How does that growth fit in with other projects, day-to-day operations as well? And it's also important to plan in the planning stage to consider larger capital investments. So this might be buying a bunch of StayFi routers or buying data lists and dropping mail, or doing realtor outreach, and that comes with all of the referral expenses and photography and onboarding. Growth can be fun, but it also could be very expensive financially and attention capacity wise. So this is where the planning comes in for how much you want to grow, what you're working with, how you're attracting the homes to ensure you can afford to grow while also still paying your operational team. So I just threw some rough numbers up here. If you're going to go buy your data, you might pay like 10 cents a record, or if you start appending the data, that's going to cost pennies a record as well. And then if you're dropping mailers, just keep in mind it might be $1 to 80 cents per mailer, depending on if you're doing postcards and letters. And voicemail drops, they're pretty cheap, but they do add up over time. And then same thing with referrals. If you're handing out checks to realtors, they like to be paid up front. So like not coming up with a fancy scheme to pay them later out of cash flow, you're going to get their attention. And then also onboarding costs. It's going to be drone photography, Matterport, smart locks, and then the time to set up the property. So that one's usually a gotcha. Sometimes we think we have all the costs covered, and then we have to go in there and spend 2 full days getting everything inventoried and put on the website and documented. So lots can surprise you on the onboarding stage as well. And then each of these stages are more allocations of time. So you're likely to spend some time in each of these buckets, but the majority of your focus will shift over time. So you're likely to already be executing and have a strategic plan. So again, executing against that plan is actually going to be where growth acceleration comes from. Amazon's other names before Amazon was Cadabra for how automatic the entire process was to the consumer, and Relentless for their growth and drive. So both are alive in their core values of Amazon today, and should be how you think about execution for your company. How can the guest and the owner experience feel magical while your internal drive for improvement is driven? So it doesn't have to be toxic culture, relentless, but at least some pep in the step. So I also have a hot take on goals. I don't think they matter, at least not as much as habits do. Improving slightly each day or week is much more impactful than having a specific goal. So if you get better 1% every day, that compounds wildly to like 3,000% a year. If you get better 1% each week, that will compound to 68% a year. So focusing on business routines and habits is going to be much more important, and you'll end up smashing through your goals. So we implement a business rhythm into our share outs, our updates, our get-togethers, ensuring teams are accountable, informed, and building rapport with one another. And it's also important to make sure that team is bought in. So feeling they have an impact, they understand the investment the business is making. For example, does your team know how much you're spending on direct mail or realtor referrals or investing in growth to hit the budget? If so, they might be less resentful about not making a certain amount of money, or maybe judgy about the type of car you're driving. So, or they might feel empowered knowing what the growth means for them in the long run, and what their role in that growth is. So don't be shy about sharing financials. It's actually something a lot of employees don't really have a lot of insight into, and it can actually be pretty empowering in the process. So on the execution front, it's really important to consider what habits and routines you're going to instill in your teams, like what feedback and loops and what processes you have to gather new information so you can learn and adapt from how you're going and hold yourself accountable. So these could be weekly meetings to go over team company goals, where the meeting is grounding in metrics to start, and then you gather anecdotes. Anecdotes are more often right. They're just showing areas that aren't being completely measured. So on the feedback loops, these also could include deal lost or meeting not held, reasons in the sale price process, or it could also be lower conversion on the marketing piece and why we think that might be. On the accountability side, it could be a business coach or ways your team can help you hold you accountable. There's also data needs that come from direct marketing, where you might be acquiring pending data. I think we talked about this a little bit earlier. Some counties make it easy to acquire, purchase. Sometimes you need to get a third-party data provider. Most counties do make this available. Some make permit lists available. Some even make contact information available, which is really helpful. So always check there first, because it's going to be the cheapest and easiest option. But if you don't like, you can go to Property Radar or Accurate Append. So just picking some names there. And then once you have the data, you want to make sure you're using the data. So a CRM for tracking purposes, real referral partners, current homeowner interactions, We use HubSpot quite a bit, but there's a bunch of other ones out there. I just recommend taking a look at their integration and their pricing. HubSpot, for example, has a whole bunch of integrations from mailers to voice drops to Zapier. And then on the capacity side, you obviously need to make sure somebody owns it and is responsible for it. If everyone owns growth, no one really owns it. So you want to make sure there's a skill set match, there's a level of excitement match with that job, and they have capacity. And then you can also look for virtual team members to help with some of the more automatic technical pieces like HubSpot setup. So I help with a variety of different short-term rental groups, from lifestyle businesses to looking to design a business that allows them more freedom, to regional growth, to set up a family legacy, to roll up plays. So I even work with vendors on services to support property managers based on what would benefit my clients and others in the space. We're all in this together, so I'd love to help you all drive great service to your owners and guests. And if you have any questions, short-term rental related or not, happy to help discuss how I can support you all. And I'd love to learn more about your all's business.
Yeah, and I saw we had a question, so let me just pull that up here just to make sure I see it.
Yeah, looking for an intro to property manager. So I'll can connect you to some managers that could help out in Price Labs.
Oh yeah, I saw that there. Awesome. And then I guess I had one more question for you, just based on what you're presenting, is kind of, you were talking about your um goals, having an end destination. I'm kind of curious, what's your end goal for Cascadia Getaways?
Yeah, our goal is to hit a minimum of 300 properties in 3 to 5 years. So we're on track for that so far. We have our budget. We go through and update that on a monthly basis for how we're tracking against it. But um, we do have goals, but we're really focused on the habits. So we've got our routines put in place. We're doing this. We're making sure we're doing the activities and moving in the right direction. And ultimately, the financial plan is there just to make sure we don't run out of cash while we're doing it. So really focusing on those habits.
And if someone's curious, does your like consulting business have a website, just so those people can go check that out?
Yeah, yeah, good call. I should have put that in there. It's rabcapllc.com.
Okay, awesome. And so yeah, definitely shoot Ryan an email. You can see right here, or go to rabcapllc.com.
Yep.
Yep. To learn more, I think, watching this presentation he gave, I'm super impressed by the level of organization and diligence. And I'm sure lots of people are asking you for all of those templates you use for all the different planning, for financial planning, for onboarding, for homeowner acquisition. I feel like automation, there's so many parts that you could help someone improve their business. So definitely reach out to Ryan if you have any questions there. And thanks again. I actually learned a ton during this presentation, so thank you so much. Yeah, and then if you're curious about StayFi, we have a promo code Full Business that you can use for 3 months off StayFi service when you sign up at stayfi.com. And if you are interested in watching this presentation again, or want to see a recording, this will be posted in the next day or so on the StayFi YouTube channel, and then will be sent out to everybody who registered, as well as to our general newsletter audience. So yeah, Ryan, thank you so much again.
Yeah, I accidentally hit answer on the last question, but yes, we do use QuickBooks for our accounting.
Awesome. Sweet. Awesome. Thank you, everybody, and have a great rest of your day. And thank you, Ryan, again. It was great chatting today, and thanks for your insights.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.